Sit back and relax and enjoy Jeremy Anspach, the CEO of PureCars. Please give him a warm welcome.
Well, thank you, David, first and foremost, for having me. I apologize. We had to screw some things up this morning. My assistant said to me like 3 days ago, I'm going to fly you in. You got an hour to kill at Central Time in Kentucky. I said, yeah, it's Central Time in Kentucky. No one picked up on you're on the wrong side of Central. So my apologies, and I'm admitting that was the reason, so we're late for that. But the good news is I wanted to make up for it, and I'm releasing kind of a beta deck that I was planning on showing more towards the end of the year that I think you guys will leave with some massive takeaways that will be very important. I see some faces in the room that I don't know, so I thought I'd spend just a few seconds and introduce myself. As David mentioned, I'm Jeremy Anspach. I'm the founder and CEO of PureCars, but first and foremost, I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm happily married with my wife, Rachel, twin boys that are identical, Eli and Noah, and a baby girl who's turning a year next month. So when my wife said, are you sleeping well? I said, absolutely not, because I've learned my lessons on that one. I've loved the car business my whole life. I have a lot of funny stories about it, but at the end of the day, like I remember kindergarten. What do you want to do when you grow up? Firefighter, policeman. They came to me and I said, car dealer. Teacher was like shocked. Is your dad a dealer? No, I love cars. So it's led me to my career, and I've been in automotive for all of it. I founded PureCars in 2007 with one real focus, which was to solve mass deficiencies with tech. We've grown to over 175 employees in 3 offices. We've won multiple innovation awards. And one of the things I've learned attending almost every conference and watching a lot of gifted speakers, oftentimes presenters like myself focus on where their company is going, the next best thing. It's not sales pitching, but it's their vision. And it's very difficult to actually think through how to execute a lot of these strategies. I wanted to make this presentation unique. A lot of the tactics I'm exploring and sharing with you are things that our data reflects. We have billions of rows of data we're updating daily, and obviously if I talked about billions of rows of data, it would be useless. But we see a lot of trend lines on things that you can improve. So I'm breaking this presentation into 3 key pieces. The first section is the engine. The second is the advertising shift, which is basically what, where, who, and on what media. And lastly, how do you know what you're doing today is working, or if you introduce some of these tactics that it will work. So when I think about this engine, the good news is it's completely in your control. Vendors can help guide you with some of it, but at the end of the day, you're in control of these levers. So if I think about the fuel to an engine, it's your stocking. And at the end of the day, stocking is really done in 3 ways. It's either wholesale, trade-in, or for those of you with multiple rooftops, at times forced transfers. On the wholesale side, nowadays, very few people actually go to the lane, but even if it's on your screen, it feels that way. You have one lever to pull, pass or buy. Where with trade-in, there's more emotion involved. You guys have new car quotas you have to hit. Your owner is calling daily. How many cars did we sell today? So what we see is there's this shiny object at times focused on the sale, pushing up trade values. Now when we look at how much should I pay for a car, we oftentimes go to a bell curve with whichever program you may use similar to this. Even if you're pulling out an old-fashioned book, most of them today are looking at what is market price and more or less factoring what is typical recon, desired profit, etc. So you should have some spread, right? We wouldn't buy it if we didn't see it this way. The challenge in the last several years has been digital has created margin erosion. This isn't new news. So at the end of the day, the cost to market has increased. And what we've started to see lately, as SAR has started to flatten out, decline, depending on what you're reading, this cost to market is continuing to accelerate. Now you may still look at this and say, okay, it's minor margin erosion, I'm still in good shape. The biggest challenge we're seeing in the stocking world is that market day supply, I'm abbreviating it as MDS, is not factored into your strategy. So this is, again, basic tactics, but it's something 10 plus years in the field we're seeing a lot of dealers slip on. So for example, if you take this vehicle with a 365-day market day supply, which AKA it's not that desirable, right? That would mean that if you price it at the 100% internet asking price, so your price to market, it's going to take you 1 year to sell. Now, if you say I have a 60-day turn, In this example, you may have to be at 88% of market to achieve that turn statistically. So we're seeing a massive shift, if you will, that market day supply on the used car lot is getting really, really hot, and the adjusted internet asking price is not happening. So in summary, if you look at this as basic math, if you have 100 used cars on the lot with an average of 30-day MDS, it will turn your cars, you should sell 100 cars. If you have 100 cars on the lot a month later, but that MDS has slipped to 60 days, you're projected to sell half. And then, of course, you're calling your advertising agency, going, you're failing, I'm going to replace you, I'm going to fire you, all these things. But at the end of the day, the fuel that goes into the engine has a mass problem. And I'm going to show you more data as we progress. So in summary on stocking, for those of you who are involved in it, make sure you guys are absolutely weighting your internet asking price to account for market day supply. As SAR slows down, used cars is the game. And if you're not doing this, it can become very dangerous very quickly. So that's the first piece of the engine. The next is, I'll call it the motor. The efficiency of your motor is what I'll say in the digital world is your merchandising. If you look at the consumer's view, it's color, make, model. So when you think about this, it provides challenges. The shopper gravitates towards photos. Again, not new news, but many, many years of presenting, I've said this for years and years and years, the most progressive guys have wonderful photo booths and things of that nature, but there's still one big problem, and I like to call this photo fatigue. We watch every action on all of our customers' websites, and we have a data science team that's constantly looking at things. And what we're starting to see is when they're on a search results page, they see very similar vehicles. Notice these are both Camrys, and the price is slightly higher on the white one. It's very difficult for me to even know why. So the shopper oftentimes, as AutoTrader and others have proven, gravitates towards photos. The challenge is the relevancy of the order of these photos is poor. Most dealerships' photos look something like this. You'll take the front quarter, maybe turn it towards the content, which is great. But then you start to see this exterior spin. It could go on for 4 more photos. I've seen up to 10 more photos before I can even learn what's the interior. Then I start to see all these wacky shots, like I'm glad to tell me it has a steering wheel. I would expect every other one on the SRP does as well. Now, we as dealers think differently about that unit. We can quickly identify, oh, it has new tires maybe from the picture. Oh, it has a sunroof. It must mean it's that trim level. The realization is, from all the data we've seen, the average shopper does not. So as a result, you're not only battering margin erosion of like vehicles, but you're now also competing against that LT rental car versus your cream puff LTZ Tahoe, which is significantly more money, because at surface, they look exactly the same. So what's critical is your photos. I'm not suggesting take better photos. That was discussed a decade ago. What I'm suggesting is rethink the order. Start with the front, then hit the trim, if it's a high trim level like LTZ, then hit your highest to lowest dollar options, then hit what options are in that trim level that are unique to it, then go to your spins. Very, very powerful data. If you look at Amazon and a lot of the top e-commerce stores, they do think about relevancy in their photos, and this is critical. So then the next thing we notice is when the shopper is lost, they'll then look for other information. What fascinates me is recon costs are continuing to go up. This is not a bad thing. People are putting more money into their cars to make them better quality. So let's say for round numbers, it's about $800 a used car that you're investing. It's not just expense. It's an expense when you're painting the rear bumper to make it retail ready. It's an investment when you're making the decision to put new tires and brakes on a car, maybe to have your certification program or your brands. The challenge is when the shopper looks at your comments, most look like what you see on the right, and they're almost useless. So fundamentally, this is partially what drives all of your advertising. You've got to make sure the motor is running well. The last piece of this is price. We all know price matters, but to be clear, your internet asking price needs to factor in market day supply. You have to think about weighted market day supply, internet asking price. Without this, you guys face a challenge. So I mentioned I'd show some data, so I'm looking forward to doing it right now. This is looking at a snapshot of a random sample of dealers from October of 16 to October of 15. And in summary, what this data is showing is inventory is going up, sales are slightly going down, and the market day supply of these units is up about 50%. This is not random. This is happening because the market is forcing us to get more aggressive on the trade. We're thinking about how do we keep our margin. We're getting a little fat and happy on the thought of what should internet asking price be, and very few tools in the market understand how to weight all of this to give you what should the price be to sell it in your desired turn. So in summary, the fuel in the engine is in your control, or at least someone or some team within your dealer or dealer group. The engine is completely in your control as well. And in fact, the biggest takeaway here is one word: it's relevancy. Now, if you fail at step 1 or step 2, or a lighter way of saying this is you don't optimize it as much as it should be, a lot of the shiny objects that PureCars and a lot of other great vendors have to offer won't be nearly as effective when you start to spend those dollars in your advertising strategy. Does that make sense? So I wanted to start with this because we're seeing this slide, and it's important that the dealer community understands it, because we can track with 95+% accuracy what a dealer is going to sell in the next 30 days based on what his tactics have been and what his current snapshot is. And the weighting of market day supply is one of the highest attributes that doesn't fail. Now, when we move into digital advertising, the key here is there's plenty of statistics to show digital wins. We know it wins. 83% of car buyers do research online, the average shopper well over 11 hours. I could keep going on these stats. These are stats that all of you know, whether it's a percentage or two change in 2016 or 15. The bottom line is online behavior is accelerating, and it's, we like to say, the digital movement. The average shopper, well over 24 touch points. Some sources are now saying over 30. When the stats were formed at 24, 19 are digital. So we have a lot of dealerships and industry experts that like to ask the question of, where should I spend my dollars? And when you think about this, there's so many touch points, it's very risky to just randomly gamble on a few. You ultimately want to be on all the channels, but the key is you don't just want to be on the digital channels, there is a time and place for traditional. Raycom Media acquired our business. They're the largest privately held broadcaster. We were not for sale. I never built PureCars to sell it. They bought our business for over $125 million, and that was a massive acquisition in the space, both in their world and in ours. And the biggest thing was they were the pioneers to see one awesome correlation. First off, consumers are consuming media on all screens. That doesn't exclude the biggest one we own. Second, 87% of all TV consumption is done with a second screen in your hand. And their mission was, in automotive, which is their largest category, how do we connect these dots? So the takeaway that I learned in the last year of being a part of their team, focused 99% of the time running PureCars, is one interesting thing. As internet activity has scaled, TV usage has also gone up. I'm not a PhD, but I would like to say we're all ADD when we're consuming media. And what this means is when we're watching television, we just pull out our screen. And it's also the other way around. When I'm at home, tinkering on the phone, the tablet, or the computer, I generally will put on my news channel. We're seeing that there's direct correlation. Harvard did this study. So the point is there can be a lot of great synergy. We see it with our customers where we do blend this environment to be on all screens, not forgetting the biggest. With all that being said, fundamentally, the biggest question that you guys need to be asking yourself in the dealer world is not what media. That comes next. The first question is which vehicles on your lot need a boost. So we're big believers that you have a finite ad budget, you have a maximum you can spend in advertising per car. Your inventory is not created equally. If you're one of the lucky Ford dealers to get the new Ford GT, this is the '06, but say the new one for conversation, it's going to sell instantly. In fact, they're all pre-sold, so it's kind of a lousy example. The spirit of this example, though, is there are high demand vehicles, which signals like massive amounts of EDP views, massive amounts of leads, search intent data would reflect it's going to sell. You don't need to boost it. Then there's your core cars that need a boost. Now the one on the left is priced right. It has an MDS weighted price. It has good photos. It has relevant comments, etc. That vehicle on the right you just got, although it may look similar, it's not yet priced and it doesn't have comments. If I'm going to spend your dollars driving traffic to one of your vehicles, I can tell you with data that the probability of getting this into a showroom up is going to be higher on the left every single time. So what we see is a lot of media is being bought with a shotgun approach. It doesn't connect advertising and merchandising. It just focuses on your lot. The best players think about your lot in a VIN by VIN basis, but there's no weighting to actually understand which vehicles should I spend my dollars on. So this is, I would say, fundamentally the biggest piece that we see that is going to shift as we go into 2017 is your advertising will be built upon the vehicles that need a boost, then be targeted to those folks that have the highest intent of buying it. If you skip these two steps, you may have really sexy ads. You may be on every media channel, but the efficiency of that media buy isn't good. So if you do these things well, you can now start buying media effectively. And we're believers, let's not bet on one media channel. Let's make sure your ad is firing at the right time on all of the channels where a consumer is spending their time. Search is the conduit between things. So if it's Google or Bing, make sure the ad is relevant, matches the searcher's query, and takes them to the most relevant page, which oftentimes is the SRP or the VDP. We see a lot of display advertising. There are a few good vendors at this business, but oftentimes we see this as a venue to do nothing more than take your billboard ad and run it digitally. There's way too much behavioral data. There's way too much data on your website that it can be compiled to think exactly like the earlier tactic of what should I be marketing, where, and to who. The what should also apply in your display and retargeting strategy. On the Facebook side, this is an area that we expanded a lot on in 2016, and the results, not just for us, I would say for the industry, has been very powerful. We're seeing extremely low cost per engagement off of Facebook. Number one, when people ask why is this happening, you have to be logged in as a real person to Facebook to ultimately see this. There's no bot traffic, etc. The second is people feel like they consume a lot of their media here. Not to get political, but if you look at one of the drivers of why our president-elect is who he is, he leveraged social media better than his counterpart. People consume this and really believe it. And when you look at J. Crew and a lot of other top retailers, if my wife puts a pair of jeans in her shopping cart, one of our boys is crying downstairs and she closes her laptop. 10 minutes later, goes on Facebook on her mobile device. Guess what she sees? 10% off those jeans. The same now can apply for you guys. Literally VIN-specific tactics within Facebook. And last but not least, you gotta think mobile. We're still seeing massive shortages here where the mobile tactics are just the desktop scaled down and it's almost ineligible. So make sure you're focused on mobile. So at the end of the day, I think about this presentation in three key areas, and I wanted to have a lot of time for questions, and we've covered almost finished the second part of it. The first is the stocking, the merchandising, etc. The second is where do I execute? And with that, I didn't want to forget listing sites. Although we don't play in this space at all directly, I have dealers ask this to our success management team on a daily basis. I'm a big believer you want to be on listing sites. People consume time, they spend time here, they look for cars. The area of caution would be, as you start looking at the Premium Plus Pro add-ons, ask yourself, did your incremental cost per VDP view go up, or was that a good buy? We see that a lot of listing sites can sell a lot of auxiliary products that is off their core as profit centers, and then you may ask yourself, if I did these myself, could I have a lower cost, be more effective? So in summary, you want to be where the consumer is viewing media and shopping. That's search, that's Facebook, that's YouTube, etc., and not to forget the listing site. So with all that said, one of the things I realized at Digital Dealer and a few of the other trade shows is it's complete vendor overload. I've seen more vendors pop up at NADA of 16 than I have in the last 5 years combined. A lot of the traditional agencies that never did digital, that used to say go use digital provider A, B, or C, now have miraculously become the best at digital. So what frightens me is a lot of dealers don't know how to vet the vendor. In fact, most don't. When I walk the trade show floor, it's very difficult to know who's right. I would ask yourself a few things. If you believe fundamentally with everything I've shown so far, whomever you use, whether it's in-house or whether it's a vendor, needs to be able to show you how their synchronization works, and they can't just say they do it. Have them show it to you. Which vehicles are you marketing and why, to whom, and on what media, and give me some basis as to the spend levels between the media types. If they can't do it, it's probably not the wisest decision you've made, and you should consider switching to someone who can. Now, on the last piece of this, it's going to tie this in to go a few steps further. When we think about the accountability and the data that matters, one of the things we've seen a transformation with over the years is the data points that digital was measured off of was cost per click and cost per lead or cost per VDP view, maybe even impression share. In fact, we've seen manufacturers jump in with mandates saying your co-op reimbursement only applies if impression share is over X. Now, at surface, it sounds great. I get it. Low impression share means you should be spending more. But impression share is a function of which keywords are you buying in what geo, right? If I bid on less keywords, my impression share would go up if the geo didn't change. If my geo was too wide or less effective, it would have negative effects as well. So most and foremost, when I think about the KPIs that matter most, it goes back to the foundation. Show me what I've stocked, where there is efficiencies to improve, create this synchronization. What is my merchandising? I know the vendor doesn't control it, or the marketing manager in-house or on the OEM side, but the technology that powers your ad buy needs to understand these things because you have a finite budget, and this is what has to happen to be effective. So in summary, it needs to be in sync. I can't drive home enough the importance of this. If you remove the gasoline from an engine or you run 87 octane on a Formula One car, if it were to start, it still wouldn't run efficiently. It's not that one lever is off. It's that as we look at 17 and we don't know where it's going to go, if you can improve your stocking strategy, which leads to merchandising, and then deploy the advertising on those vehicles that need it, you will win. So when I look at show me the KPIs that matter, it's things like this. Which are the vehicles on my lot missing a price? Which are the vehicles that are ready for showtime? Which are the vehicles that are getting plenty of VDP views on listing sites or my own website where it's going to sell with a 90+% probability in the next 7 days without me shifting one more penny of ad buy? If you do these things well, then it's a question of how much budget in each channel, and the end result is your CPC, your CPL, your impression share, etc. We see so many dealers that focus just on one of those KPIs or two or three of them that it alters the logic of what your media buy should be and ultimately puts more budget to dealer name or other things where I can show you a low cost per lead, but it may not be the most effective buy. So as I look at the trifecta, if you will, it's improve the stocking, merchandising, and advertising and vendor accountability. My data science team is quite large, and one of the privileges we have is to have data on the vast majority of the market. And as we continue to see these trends, I could have spent an hour just showing you raw data, and I figured it would be overload. But with that being said, when we see a dealer focus on stocking and improve their logic on what am I buying or how much am I paying so I can have a weighted MDS, internet asking price, if I can get the car quicker through recon, improve the comments, etc., and then buy the media on those vehicles that need the boost, you'll find those vehicles that need it have been reduced because the organic traffic that you get from your traditional advertising, listing sites, and etc. will generate enough activity where your ad budget can be spent then on those cars that are ready for showtime and just need more opportunities. So that's what I wanted to cover today. I've run long before, so I wanted to make sure we have plenty of time for open questions. Questions? In the back?
You gave the example of your Wi-Fi and jeans, or looking at jeans, and then they put that in the shopping carts. But we've also seen already this year the path to purchase. People look at Jeeps, trucks, Camaros, the Ford GT, but what they end up really needing to buy is minivans.
Yep.
When they're looking at so many different things, and it's not a small retail purchase, how do you know which of those ends to then retarget that customer?
So it would be very difficult to do by hand. No one really can because we have so many different SKU numbers that are changing every day. So the reality is once you have the user's footprint, if you will, or fingerprint better yet, we're then altering with AI based on their behavior. Should I now start showing them a class of vehicles versus a specific vehicle? Are they all over the board, but all those vehicles are between $10,000 and $20,000? Then maybe I need to be saying, vehicles 20,000 and under are on sale. So really think about it as if all of his activity is low funnel on a VIN, focus there. The second that behavior is either not engaging or is getting higher funnel, get one notch above him. The same way we would in sales if we were working the floor. If a guy comes in and says he wants a Corvette and then says, you know what, it's too expensive, show me other sports cars, and you show him a Camaro, we may then show him the used Mustang we have as well, if the Camaro didn't hook him. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a lot of intelligence when it comes to remarketing.
Yeah,
Are you guys currently doing that?
we are. Any other questions?
So sometimes, just for example, a fresh unit comes in and it will get stocked in, but it's not fully stocked in, and
Yep.
it goes live with the price, but no pictures. It's not staged correctly at that point in time, which sometimes still generates a phone call depending on the unit.
Yep.
Are you saying that it's not worth or should wait until it's fully staged, that maybe that because it's not having a picture that you may be losing more people?
It's a great question. So the question is, if the vehicle's live in the sense it's in your DMS and now in your inventory management tool, now on the web, maybe priced but without photos, should I wait to load that vehicle or override it so it doesn't show? What I would say to that is, number one, I'm a big believer of take a few photos before it's even through recon if it's appropriate. I view it kind of like fishing without bread on the hook. It still can't hurt. Something may bite the hook, right? But I wouldn't spend variable ad dollars marketing that unit until it's ready. Would I put it on the listing site that doesn't charge you per VIN? Of course, there's no downside. Maybe that guy is absolutely looking for that 2011 Camaro. Would I invest in VDP traffic from display tactics or search or other channels, or show someone in their Facebook feed that specific vehicle with photos coming soon? No. Now, can we override these things? Of course. But if I looked at data, the click-through rate would be lower and the probability of connecting that digital fingerprint into your showroom would be significantly lower.
So on the back end of yours, if someone was your vendor for someone and did not have photos,
Yes, so we have a lot of machine learning. So not only would you be getting an alert going, these are the 9 vehicles without photos, but unless you say otherwise, I wouldn't be spending variable ad dollars to those units. Now, if someone searches for Accords and 9 of your Accords are well merchandised and 1 doesn't have photos, it's still going to be on the SRP page. But I wouldn't spend my effort retargeting and driving traffic to that specific unit because it's not ready.
No, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not asking a question. Your PureCars could keep that from happening, or
Correct.
because if you said, okay, if they don't have photos, then this is not going to be retargeted.
That's right.
Is that correct?
Yep. Or more than retargeted, advertise with your dollars in variable areas. Any other questions? Anybody? All right. Well, thank you very much. I hope you found it insightful. Thank you.